territories of Carthage, made a conquest of the Commonwealth. Venice in later times figured more than once in wars of ambition, till becoming an object to the other Italian states. Pope Julius too found means to accomplish that formidable lead, line which gave a deadly blow to the power and pride of this haughty republic. The provinces of Holland, till they were overwhelmed in debts and taxes, took a leading and conspicuous part in the wars of Europe. They had furious contest with England for the dominion of the sea, and were among the most persevering and most implacable of the opponents of Louis XIV. In the government of Britain, the representatives of the people compose one branch of the national legislature. Commerce has been for ages the predominant pursuit of that country. Few nations, nevertheless, have been more frequently engaged in war. And the wars in which that kingdom has been engaged have, in numerous instances, proceeded from the people. There have been, if I may so express it, almost as many popular as royal wars. The cries of the nation and the importunities of their representatives, upon various occasions, dragged their monarchs into war, or continued them in it, contrary to their inclinations, and sometimes contrary to the real interest of the state. In that memorable struggle for superiority between the rival houses of Austria and Barbary, which so long kept Europe in a flame, it is well known that the antipathies of the English against the French, seconding the ambition, or rather the avarice, of a favored leader, protracted the war beyond the limits marked out by sound policy, and for considerable time in opposition to the views of the court. The wars of these two last mentioned nations have in a great measure grown out of commercial considerations, the desire of supplanting and the fear of being supplanted, either in particular branches of traffic or in the general advantages of trade and navigation. From this summary of what has taken place in other countries, whose situations have borne the nearest resemblance to our own, what reason can we have to confide in those reveries, which would seduce us into an expectation of peace? Cordiality between the members of the present Confederacy in a state of separation. Have we not already seen enough of the fallacy and extravagance of those idle theories which have amused us with promises of an exemption from the imperfections, weaknesses, and evils incident to society in every shape? Is it not time to awake from the deceitful dream of a golden age, and to adopt as a practical maxim for the direction of our political conduct that we, as well as the other inhabitants of the globe, are yet remote from the happy empire of perfect wisdom and perfect virtue? Let the point of extreme depression to which our national dignity and credit have sunk, let the inconveniences felt everywhere from a lax and ill administration of government, let the revolt of a part of the state of North Carolina, the late menacing disturbances in Pennsylvania, and the actual insurrections and rebellions in Massachusetts declared.
Because when once an efficient national government is established, the best men in the country will not only consent to serve, but also will generally be appointed to manage it. For although town or country or other contracted influence may place men in state assemblies or senates or courts of justice, or executive departments, yet more general and extensive reputation for talents and other qualifications will be necessary to recommend men to offices under the national government, especially as it will have the widest field for choice, never experienced that want of proper persons, which is not uncommon in some of the states hence. It will result that the administration, the political councils, and the judicial decisions of the national government will be more wise, systematical, and judicious than those of individual states, and consequently more satisfactory with respect to other nations, as well as more safe with respect to us. Because under the national government, treaties and articles of treaties, as well as the laws of nations, will always be expounded in one sense and executed in the same manner, whereas adjudications on the same points and questions in 13 states or in 3 or 4 confederacies will not always accord or be consistent, and that, as well from a variety of independent courts and judges appointed by different and independent governments, as from the different local laws and interests which may affect and influence them. The wisdom of the convention in committing such questions to the jurisdiction judgment of courts appointed by and responsible only to one national government cannot be too much commended, because the prospect of present loss or advantage may often tempt the governing party in 1 or 2 states to swerve from good faith and justice, but those temptations not reaching the other states and consequently having little or no influence on the national government, the temptation will be fruitless and good faith and justice be preserved. Here's a treaty of peace with Britain adds great weight to this reasoning, because even if the governing party in a state should be disposed to resist such temptations, yet as such temptations may and commonly do result from circumstances peculiar to the state and may affect a great number of the inhabitants, the governing party may not always be able, if willing, to prevent the injustice meditated or to punish the aggressor.
not a new observation that the people of any country, if like the Americans, intelligent and well-informed, and steadily persevere for many years in an erroneous opinion respecting their interest, the consideration naturally tends to create great respect for the high opinion which the people of America have so long and uniformly attained of the importance of their continuing firmly united under one federal government vested with sufficient powers for all general and national purposes. The more attentively I consider and investigate the reasons which appear to have given birth to this opinion, the more I become convinced that they are cogent and conclusive. Among the many objects to which a wise and free people find it necessary to direct their attention, that of providing for their safety seems to be the first. The safety of the people doubtless has relation to a great variety of circumstances and considerations, and consequently affords great latitude to those who wish to define it precisely and comprehensively. At present, I mean only to consider it as it respects security for the preservation of peace and tranquility, as well as against dangers from foreign arms and influence, as from dangers of the like kind arising from domestic causes. As the former of these comes first in order, it is proper, it should be the first discussed. Let us therefore proceed to examine whether the people are not right in their opinion that a cordial union under an efficient national government affords them the best security that can be devised against hostilities from abroad. The number of wars which have happened or will happen in the world will always be found to be in proportion to the number and weight of the causes, whether real or pretended, which provoke or invite them. If this remark be just, it becomes useful to inquire whether so many just causes of war are likely to be given by United America as by distilling America. For if it should turn out that United America will probably give the fewest, then it will follow that in this respect the Union tends most to preserve the people in a state of peace with other nations.
Field of Western territory. Therefore, we perceive an ample theater for hostile pretensions, without any umpire or common judge to interpose between the contending parties. To reason from the past to the future, we shall have good ground to apprehend that the sword would sometimes be appealed to as the arbiter of their differences. The circumstances of the dispute between Connecticut and Pennsylvania, respecting the land at Wyoming, admonish us not to be sanguine in expecting an easy accommodation of such differences. The Articles of Confederation oblige the parties to submit the matter to the decision of a federal court. The submission was made, and the court decided in favor of Pennsylvania. But Connecticut gave strong indications of dissatisfaction with that determination, nor did she appear to be entirely resigned to it, till, by negotiation and management, something like an equivalent was found for the loss she supposed herself to have sustained. Nothing here said is intended to convey the slightest censure on the conduct of that state. She no doubt sincerely believed herself to have been injured by the decision, and states, like individuals, acquiesce with great reluctance in determinations to their disadvantage. Those who had an opportunity of seeing the inside of the transactions which attended the progress of the controversy between this state and the District of Vermont can vouch the opposition we experienced, as well from states not interested as from those which were interested in the claim, and can attest the danger to which the peace of the Confederacy might have been exposed had this state attempted to assert its rights by force. Two motives preponderated in that opposition. One, a jealousy entertained of our future power, and the other, the interest of certain individuals of influence in the neighboring states who had obtained grants of lands under the actual government of that district, even the states which brought forward claims in contradiction to ours seemed more solicitous to dismember this state than to establish their own pretensions. These were New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, upon all occasions discovered a warm zeal for the independence of Vermont, and Maryland, till alarmed by the appearance of a connection between Canada and that state, entered deeply into the same views. These, being small states, saw with an unfriendly eye the perspective of our growing greatness. In a review of these transactions, we may trace some of the causes which would be likely to embroil the states with each other, if it should be their unpropitious destiny to become disunited. The competitions of commerce would be another fruitful source of contention. The states less favorably circumstanced would be desirous of escaping from the disadvantages of local situation and of sharing in the advantages of their more fortunate neighbors. Each state or separate confederacy would pursue a system of commercial policy peculiar to itself. This would occasion distinctions, preferences, and exclusions which would beget discontent. The habits of intercourse on the basis of equal privileges to which we have been accustomed since the earliest settlement of the country would give a keener edge to those causes of discontent than they would naturally have independent of this circumstance. We should be ready to denominate injuries those things which were in reality the justifiable acts of independent, so far aimed is consulting a distinct interest, the spirit of enterprise which characterizes the commercial part of America has left no occasion of displaying itself unimproved. It is not at all probable that this unbridled spirit would pay much respect to those regulations of trade by which particular states might endeavor to secure exclusive benefits to their own citizens. The infractions of these regulations on one side, the efforts to prevent and repel them on the other, would naturally lead to outrages, and these to reprisals and wars. Confederacy, as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external force and security, is in reality not a new idea. It has been practiced upon in different countries and ages, and has received the sanction of the most approved writers. On the subject of politics, the opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated the observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a republican government. But they seem not to have been apprised of the sentiments of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with such ready acquiescence. Recommends a small extent for republics. The standards he had in view were of dimensions far short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Not Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternative, either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or splitting ourselves into an infinity of little jealous clashing tumultuous
who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient might, by the multiplication of petty offices, answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to extend their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the people of America.
Federalist No. 7. The same subject continued, concerning dangers from dissensions between the states. For the Independent Journal, Alexander Hamilton. To the people of the state of New York, it is sometimes asked, with an air of seeming triumph, what inducements could the states have, if disunited, to make war upon each other? It would be a full answer to this question to say, precisely the same inducements which have at different times deluged in blood all the nations in the world. But unfortunately for us, the question admits of a more particular answer. There are causes of differences within our immediate contemplation, of the tendency of which, even under the restraints of a federal constitution, we have had sufficient experience to enable us to form a judgment of what might be expected if those restraints were removed. Territorial disputes have at all times been found one of the most fertile sources of hostility among nations. Perhaps the greatest proportion of wars that have desolated the earth have sprung from this origin. This cause would exist among us in full force. We have a vast tract of unsettled territory within the boundaries of the United States. There still are discordant and undecided claims between several of them, and the dissolution of the Union would lay a foundation for similar claims between them all. It is well known that they have heretofore had serious and animated discussion concerning the rights to the lands which were ungranted at the time of the Revolution, and which usually went under the name of Crown lands. The states within the limits of whose colonial governments they were comprised have claimed them as their property. The others have contended that the rights of the Crown in this article devolved upon the Union, especially as to all that part of the Western Territory which, either by actual possession or through the submission of the Indian proprietors, was subjected to the jurisdiction of the King of Great Britain, till it was relinquished in the Treaty of Peace. This, it has been said, was at all events an acquisition to the Confederacy by compact with a foreign power. It has been the prudent policy of Congress to appease this controversy by prevailing upon the states to make cessions to the United States for the benefit of the whole. This has been so far accomplished as, under a continuation of the Union, to afford a decided prospect of an amicable termination of the dispute. A dismemberment of the Confederacy, however, would revive this dispute and would create others on the same subject. At present, a large part of the vacant Western Territory is, by cession at least, if not by any anterior right, the common property of the Union. If that were at an end, the states which made the cession on a principle of federal compromise would be apt when the motive of the grant had ceased to reclaim the lands as a reversion. The other states would no doubt insist on a proportion, by right of representation. Their argument would be that a grant once made could not be revoked, and that the justice of participating in territory acquired or secured by the joint efforts of the Confederacy remained undiminished. If, contrary to probability, it should be admitted by all the states that each had a right to a share of this common stock, there would still be a difficulty to be surmounted as to a proper rule of apportionment. Different principles would be set up by different states for this purpose. And
as they would affect the opposite interests of the parties, they might not easily be susceptible of a pacific adjustment.
The utility of a confederacy, as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external force and security, is in reality not a new idea. It has been practiced upon in different countries and ages, and has received the sanction of the most approved writers on the subject of politics. The opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a republican government, but they seem not to have been apprised of the sentiments of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with such ready acquiescence. When Montesquieu recommends a small extent for republics, the standards he had in view were of dimensions far short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Neither Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternate either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or of splitting ourselves into an infinity of little jealous, clashing, tumultuous commonwealths, the wretched nurseries of unceasing discord, and the miserable objects of universal pity or contempt. Some of the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma, and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient might, by the multiplication of petty offices, answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to extend their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the people of America. Utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of the petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrast to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of felicity open to view, we behold them with a mixture of regret arising from the reflection that the pleasing scenes before us are soon to be overwhelmed by the tempestuous waves of sedition and party rage. If momentary rays of glory break forth from the gloom while they dazzle us with a transient and fleeting brilliancy, they at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of government should pervert the direction and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for which the favored soils that produced them have been so justly celebrated. From the disorders that disfigure the annals of those republics, the advocates of despotism have drawn arguments, not only against the forms of republican government, but against the very principles of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society, and have indulged themselves in malicious exultation over its friends and partisans happily for mankind. Stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have, in a few glorious instances, refuted their gloomy sophisms, and, I trust, America will be the broad and solid foundation of other edifices, not less magnificent, which will be equally permanent monuments of their errors. But it is not to be denied that the portraits they have sketched of republican government were just copies of the originals from which they were taken. If it had been found impracticable to have devised models of a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obliged to abandon the cause of that species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has
achieved great improvement. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institution of courts composed of judges holding their offices during good behavior, the representation of the people in the legislature by deputies of their own election. These are wholly new discoveries, or have made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. They are means, and powerful means, by which the excellences of Republican government may be retained and its imperfections lessened or avoided. To this catalog of circumstances that tend to the amelioration of popular systems of civil government, I shall venture, however novel it may appear to some, to add one more on a principle which has been made the foundation of an objection to the new Constitution. I mean, the enlargement of the orbit within which such systems are to revolve, either in respect to the dimensions of a single state or to the consolidation of several smaller states into one great confederacy. The latter is that which immediately concerns the object under consideration. It will, however, be of use to examine the principle in its application to a single state, which shall be attended to in another place.
Small views are irresolute, full of doubt. Now in haste, then too late. Grasp beyond measure, and you will go astray. Better thinking straight from the real, it darkens, sinks and spoils. To weary the spirit is not good of what use are strange and familiar. In following beyond vehicle, do not dislike the sixth sense objects. Not disliking the sixth sense objects turns out equal to perfect awakenness. The wise performs through non-action, the fool ties himself. Things are not different. Ignorance leads to preference. Do not seek the true, only abstain from views. Do not dwell in dull views. Be careful not to pursue them. The slightest trace of right and wrong, and mind is lost in confusion. One being is the source of the two. However, do not even maintain the one. With one mind, there is no arising, and everything is without blame. No blame, no thing, no arising, no mind. The subject follows when the object ceases. The object is expelled when the subject sinks. The object is related to the subject. The subject is related to the object. If you want to know these two, their origin is one emptiness. In one emptiness, both are equal, evenly contained in innumerable forms. Do not differentiate coarse and fine, and you will not be for or against. The great way is all embracing, neither easy nor difficult. Small views are irresolute, full of doubt. Now in haste, then too late. Grasp beyond measure, and you will go astray. Letting go leads to spontaneity. Essence never goes, nor bites. Accord your nature with the way, and go free of troubles. Better thinking straight from the real, darkens, sinks and spoils. To weary the spirit is not good of what use are strange and familiar. In following the own vehicle, do not dislike the sixth sense objects. Not disliking the sixth sense objects turns out equal to perfect wickedness. The wise performs through non-action, the fool ties himself. Things are not different, ignorance leads to preference. The best way not to fit you, it only excludes picking and choosing. Once you stop loving and hating, it will enlighten itself. Depart for a hairbreadth, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you want it to appear, do not be for or against. To set longing against loathing makes the mind sick, not knowing the deep meaning of the word. It is useless to quiet thoughts. Completed is like great vacuity, with nothing lacking, nothing in excess. When you grasp and reject, there is no suchness. Do not follow conditions, do not dwell in emptiness, cherishing oneness in the earth, everything will stop by itself. Rest to stop motion, and rest will move you again. If you are merely eager, how will you know oneness? Now understanding oneness, you will miss into ways, excelling beyond you without it, following emptiness, you are always behind it. The more words and thoughts, the more you will go astray. Stop speaking, stop thinking, and there is nothing you cannot understand. Return to the roof and obtain the purport. Following the outcome, you lose the source for a moment. Turn inward and surpass the emptiness of things. Changes that go on in emptiness all have their cause in ignorance. Do not seek the truth, only abstain from views. Do not dwell into views. Be careful not to pursue them. The slightest trace of right and wrong, and mind is lost in confusion. One being is the source of the two. However, do not even maintain the one. With one mind there is no rising, then everything is without blame. No blame, no things, no rising, no more.
Abby Feldman? Are you Jewish, Abby? Yes, I'm single. I live in Illinois. Chicago. I'm making Chicago cheese pizza. We're listening to AI music that I created.
The best way not to free you, it only excludes picking and choosing. Once you stop loving and hating, it will enlighten itself. Depart for a hairbreadth, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you want it to appear, do not be for or against. To set longing against loathing makes the mind sick, not knowing the deep meaning. It is useless to quiet thoughts. Complete it is like great vacuity, with nothing behind. The more words and thoughts, the more you will go astray. Stop speaking, stop thinking, and there is nothing you cannot understand. Return to the roof and obtain the purport. Following the outcome, you lose the source. For a moment, turn inward and surpass the emptiness of things. Changes that go on in emptiness all have their cause in ignorance. Do not seek the true, only abstain from views. Do not dwell in dual views. Be careful not to pursue them. The slightest trace of right and wrong, and mind is lost in confusion. One being is the source of the two. However, do not the best way not to think it only excludes picking and choosing. Once you stop loving and hating, it will enlighten itself. Depart for a hairbreadth, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you want it to appear, do not be for or against. To set longing against loathing makes the mind sick. Not knowing the deep meaning, it is useless to quiet thoughts. Complete it is like great vacuity, with nothing lacking, nothing in excess. When you grasp and reject, there is no suchness. Do not follow conditions. Do not dwell in emptiness. Cherishing oneness in the earth, everything will stop by itself. Rest to stop motion, and rest will move you again. If you are merely in ether, how will you know oneness? Now understanding oneness, you will miss in two ways. Expelling beyond, you will without it. Following emptiness, you are always behind. The more words and thoughts, the more you will go astray. Stop speaking, stop thinking, and there is nothing you cannot understand. Return to the roof and obtain the purport. Following the outcome, you lose the source. For a moment, turn inward and surpass the emptiness of things. Changes that go on in emptiness all have their cause in ignorance. Do not seek the true, only abstain from views. Do not dwell in dual views. Be careful not to pursue them. The slightest trace of right and wrong, and mind is lost in confusion. One being is the source of the two. However, do not even maintain the one. With one mind, there is no rising. Then everything is without blame, no blame.
faith is the road to non-duality. Because the non-dual because the non-goal is one with the trusting love. Holy in this faith is the road to non-duality. In this faith is the road to non-duality. Because the non-dual is one with the trusting
That's because the heating up destroys the alcohol. It ends up just sweetening. But that's why you shouldn't use expensive wine, because that's meant to be had in its alcohol state.
Right.
I just always use leftover wine to use it for the most point. It's like we have wine that goes bad. I'll just grab the,
Oh yeah, wine that's gone bad. That's the best one to use. You're
Right.
saving money.
Right.
Which is like frozen box wine. He's got a lot of vibrations going on.
Right.
Yeah, it's what's his face again?
Right.
Crispy, Helena.
Right.
What's your go-to meal, Michael?
Pizza. I like pizza.
What's your go-to meal to make?
I have par-baked pizza. I prepare it. Like if I'm making it scratch, I don't like preparing meals scratch.
How much does a kosher pizza cost?
Not much. I don't think it costs more. I think they're all competitive.
What's that fucking noise? Music is back here.
Right.
Yeah, it's John Kitover.
Right? Right?
Oh, yeah, why haven't I blocked this one?
Hello? Hello, Jeff!
I'm going for the fuck sheet.
Oh.
You are.
Oh,